All right, welcome everybody to our weekly blab, and I am thrilled to be here today with Anne Sheybani.
You got it right.
I had to ask Joanne to make sure I got it right.
She's my girl.
Yes, and so Anne specializes in helping speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs write and publish books that will attract clients. And Anne is an elite level, book yourself solid certified coach, a Harvard trained writer, Amazon best-selling author, and a boot camp master sergeant.
I
So
love
in other
that.
words, she doesn't take no guff from anybody. And she's also the author of the book How to Eat the Elephant, Build Your Book in Bite-Sized Steps. I love that. So welcome to the
Thank
blab.
you.
Anne.
I sound so impressive the way you sound it. I listen to you and I'm like, wow.
You're like,
cool.
When's this person showing up?
I know. This is fun.
Yes. Thank you. Now, are you in Ireland or are you in Connecticut right now?
I'm in Ireland. We've got this like insane kind of lifestyle where we'll fly into the United States for, like 4 days and then fly back. And so last night we flew in and I think I got about 3 hours of sleep sitting up. And,
Okay.
you have to hit the tarmac running. So yeah, I'm in Ireland right now and it's kind of a manky day. It's about 5 o'clock in the evening.
Okay. So I have billed this blab as, I simply took what I noticed was your lead magnet on your website, which is let's see, the 5 easiest types of books to write for your business.
Yeah.
And before we get into that though, I'd like to ask the why. I mean, I think writing is something that a lot of us, would like to do. And I definitely love the aspect, and that's why I invited you in terms of how does writing help us build our business? Because our audience as entrepreneurs, we're looking for ways to build that business. But ultimately, it comes down to the why. Why should an entrepreneur write a book?
I think I'm going to introduce the reason why in a story, because when you tell a story, you actually can support a point much better. If I just told you the reason and left it at that without a story, it's in one ear and out the other.
Right.
So I had gone away for 8 weeks to a writing retreat, an artist retreat, to work on the final manuscript of my memoir. And I came back after 8 weeks. I'd been working on this memoir for 6 years. And when I got back, my husband had written and published a book. And I'm like, wait a minute. And what he had done is he'd taken his blog content, he had organized it, he'd contacted a partnership press, he got this whole thing put together. And when I came back, there I was still slaving over every single word. And it's going to be beautiful and magnificent. And he had this book out in the world. And so we were up in Vermont. We'd driven up to Vermont. We were having dinner at this little, restaurant. And we were talking about this book of his. And this woman comes over after we're finishing up dinner and she looks at my husband and she goes, "Oh my God, you're not an author, are you?" I'm sitting at the table going lady, I'm the writer in the family. And so of course Walt's like, "Why, yes I am an author." And he eats it all up by the time
I think Walt likes to be referred to as El Presidente.
He likes to be referred to as El Presidente, and that's not generally what I refer to him as. But so by the time they finish this conversation, he has a speaking gig booked with this woman. She ends up being like the teacher at some private school day school up in Vermont. And he's got this opportunity. And, I'm like kicking myself all the way home because this woman has no idea what kind of book he's produced. He has no idea if he was published by Macmillan or Random House or if he self-published on Create Space. The mere fact that he could put the title author behind his name immediately lent him the credibility that most entrepreneurs are looking for.
Right.
And the simple fact of the matter is, he put together a very nice book, but it's not Gone with the Wind. And so it was this eye-opening epiphany for me that not everybody has to write a novel or spend 7 years working on their autobiography or their memoir in order to get the credibility, to get the opportunities that having a book gives you. It lends an immediate credibility, deserved or not, and it gives you, it's the calling card. It immediately places you as an expert, and that's what we're looking to. We've got to differentiate ourselves, and it's the calling card for credibility and expertise.
That's awesome.
Doesn't that annoy you?
About Walt.
that's just wrong. That's just wrong. But it's true. It's true. It's true.
I think you also illustrated a wonderful point there, and it's that you could have said the why. You could have simply said the why for writing a book is that it lends you credibility and authority.
Yes.
And instead, you shared a powerful story that resonates, that sinks in, that gets us upset at Walt, that life's unfair. But
yeah, I mean, one of the, if you are an entrepreneur, if you are speaking, if you are writing, if you are presenting yourself, out there in the world, if you are creating webinars, if you are creating workshops, our tendency is to want to load people up with a lot of facts and concepts and a lot of figures and, right, statistics, because we think that makes us look smart. And we want, we want to layer that out. But the fact of the matter is, one of the benefits of learning how to write, and I'm not just talking about a book, but learning how to write an article, learning how to write a blog post, learning how to write copy, is that you've got to learn to create stories. You have to learn how to choose stories that best demonstrate a point that you want to make, because number one, that's how people remember the point.
Yes, absolutely.
It opens, absolutely. Yeah, and we need to put a face to this stuff, or the concepts go right out the window over our head. It's not out the window; it's like over the head. That's what this means. Out the window is something else.
There still seems to be an echo. There still seems to be an echo. I'm going to see if I go.
You sound echoey, but I sound fantastic. But I think that's all that matters.
Okay. Well, let's work with it. Let's work with it. So there's five types of books to write your business.
So I'm gonna share a little story. Maybe a year and a half ago, I had a speaker from Canada come to me, and he had a manuscript. Somebody had recommended he speak to me. And he said, look, I got a manuscript. I'm wondering if you would take a look at it and see if it's any good. And the fellow was from Zimbabwe. And what he had done is he had shared on the stage a lot of these stories about his trials and tribulations of having lost everything as a plantation farmer in Zimbabwe, during the takeover. I think it was in the 80s. And he had all of these amazing stories about failing and then getting back up and overcoming failure. And so people who heard him speak would say, dude, you got to write a book because your stories are amazing. And he went ahead and did what a lot of people do when they hear you've got to write a book. We think of two possibilities. We think either one, we got to write this novel, or we think we've got to write some sort of textbook, and we don't really know what the options are in between. And so the fellow took and went and created a 700-page autobiography. I mean, the guy had, his conception all the way through, grade school, and everything that he could think of, he thrown into this autobiography. And it was manuscript like that wide. And so his goal was to have something to sell in the back of the room. And can you imagine walking by and seeing this 200-inch thick book in the back of the room and
that scares me right now.
It's like totally scary. And so, he didn't understand what the options were. And so that's where I came up with, creating a list of a whole bunch of easier options to write than a 700-page autobiography. Because number one, nobody wants to read that. Stephen Pressfield just came out with a book. It said, nobody wants to read your shit. And nobody wants to read 700 pages of your shit, period. And so over the course of the years, I've just come across these great ways to create a book, to sell at the back of the room, to create that credibility, to have something to hand to your clients that are really valuable, but they're not all that time consuming for you or the reader. And so the first kind of book, like whenever you scan Facebook, everybody puts up their quotes, and there are some people who are more quoting than other people. Like every time you come up to their page, they have put up some inspirational quote. Well, that's actually that's great content for creating a quotation book. So all right, we live in Ireland, and every time somebody comes to our house as a guest, they bring some book of quotations. And somebody paid, I don't know, 20 euros or $20 for this little book of quotations. And all it is a series of quotation that all come under the header, you're Irish when. And so it's really, really simple. If, a big component of your business is motivating people, to gather up all of your motivating quotes and, properly identify what the source of your quotation is and put it together in a book. And so I had a girlfriend from Romania who created a book of Romanian wisdom because she got really tired of people saying, oh yeah, Romania, that's like where Nadia Comaneci is from. or isn't that like Dracula? And she got tired of it. So she
okay, I'll admit it. That's what I thought.
Right, I know. So she went and gathered up all of these quotations from famous Romanian.
That is where Dracula's from, though, right?
I know. Yeah, it's where he's from. He's from Transylvania, which is apparently a province of Romania. And so, as simple as that book was, and she put a lot of time into it. It was a really beautifully produced book. It bought her a whole bunch of things. Number one, she immediately became the go-to expert on Romania in the United States. Like, local news stations would call her if they needed a quotation or something about Romania. And while she was in the entrepreneurial world for a while, when she decided to go corporate, on her resume, she had written down that she was an author, that she had written this book. And out of the field of like 500 people, they chose her for the job. And one of the reasons that they cited is because she had a publication and they were hiring a project manager, and they're figuring, for God's sake, this woman can run a project from start to finish, which is a book. You can apply it to business. And so, something as simple and like almost seemingly silly like that bought her so much credibility. And so I don't know if you've ever heard of an anthology. This is type number 2. So if you've got a great story about your weight loss, and you're a prime example of somebody who's got a great weight loss story, and you write a 10-page chapter about your weight loss experience and what the secrets for your weight loss success is or was, you'd be like, great, I got myself a 10-page chapter. But if you don't want to write the entire book, if you've already said your piece essentially in a chapter, but you want to write a book, then you might look around for other people who could share their own weight loss stories, who could share their own weight loss tips. And then you would, as the author of this anthology, gather up all of these stories and create a book where you tell your own story and you are collecting all of these other people's stories. and you've got yourself an anthology about weight loss. And so if the idea of writing an entire book on your own is just like too overwhelming, or the thought of it is too time consuming, I would invite you to consider writing an anthology. And, you are a perfect example. You're traveling in circles with other people who, have shared their own weight loss stories, or you have your own clients who have used your methods, and they share their experience on how one of your methods totally switched up the game for them. Well, there you go, and you start gathering those stories. So not only do you have this great book, you've got this testimonial of all these people.
I think what I also love about this, and I'm going to try to keep my part short because I hear that echo and I like hearing it anyways. But what I love about that, we talk a lot about the list of 20 and the network. In other words, people that should be in your network, that if you had the right people around you, you would absolutely be book solid in your business. And so question always comes up is, how do I reach out to people that might be influential? How do I build that relationship? Because at the end of the day, all successful sales comes down to relationships. It's the relationship that the person feels to you. It's the relationship that a referral partner might have with you. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to that relationship. And one of the easiest ways to reach out to people that maybe you don't yet know but would like to would do an anthology. If I wanted to reach out to 20 influential people that and ask myself, what do I have to offer them? What value can I have them? Well, I can put them on a pedestal, or I can put them on the stage. I can have them share their wisdom that they want to get out into the world, invite them to contribute maybe a short chapter, probably something that they've said over and over and over in different mediums, but now invite them to share that to my audience. I've not only I've immediately provided value with them, but I've built a relationship.
Yeah, so essentially what you're doing is you're offering people a platform.
Exactly.
And so I was looking at, am I really buzzy?
I think it's okay now.
Okay.
I think it's okay now.
Okay.
Or,
so
it is a little,
all right, you let me know, because I can keep talking.
Okay, go ahead.
So I was at,
go ahead.
All right, I was at a conference with Lisa Sasevich, who, for entrepreneurs know, she's speaking from the stage. And, she didn't have a book. And so she created an anthology. She gave her inner circle members, who were probably paying her 20, 30K a year, she gave them the platform. So they were able to introduce their business to her list, essentially her readership. She gets out, Lisa Sasevich gets, she gets the testimonials. She probably got money up front too. They probably paid, some money to participate in this anthology. And just note, this is a wonderful way of creating income too, that if you have a certain following, and this would be considered a huge benefit to people, you can also charge them money to participate in your anthology. But even, take that away, you are giving them an opportunity to shine. You are, your referral partners, holy cow. Would that be a great way to solidify the bonds? Because you're doing the work of gathering the material, editing, getting it published, getting it produced and whatnot. So huge. I totally agree with you, to offer other people, to offer your clients, to offer your associates, to offer, people that you want to get to know a platform like that. It's huge.
And so I guess the question comes up, which is the title of your book, We might get an idea. We might say that's an idea. We might say that's what stops people from doing that?
It's the idea of writing an entire book, coming up with all of the content yourself, can be overwhelming, especially when you think, how was I conceived? And, what was the like?
I want to go there.
Right. I don't even really want to know myself. So, all right, a lot of entrepreneurs, we do, one of the primary ways we do business is we conduct workshops. And I am the biggest believer in repurposing material. Totally interested in repurposing material because I'm lazy. And so if you create, you too, right? If you create a 6-week workshop, for example, what you do is you have a series of concepts, you have probably some stories, and you have a whole bunch of exercises. You can turn that workbook content, you can turn that content into a workbook. And so, I will show you one of Walt's books, even though it really kills me. It really does. So he is known, he does all these workshops on time mastery. And so what he did is you have got this book. So he put together essentially, all of the content of his workshop. And then, so he listed, he gave all of the content, and then he put together in the back all of the exercises. And so if you look at this, it's like a logbook or a diary. It's, the sheets you have your people fill out. And so on first glance, you've got maybe 20 or 30 pages of content that looks like a book, like what you would expect a book to look like. And then you have another 20 pages or 30 pages of worksheets that people can fill out. Mm-hmm. And so this idea of writing Gone with the Wind versus taking your workshop content, cleaning it up so it's readable, inserting enough stories to support those concepts, and then leaving a lot of white space for people to use it and to fill it out. It's like people love this stuff, not just because it's written by Walt.
That's why I love it. Personally. That's why I love it.
I know, but it's the opposite.
And Walt is.
I don't know. So it's this fantastic opportunity to allow them to write and to participate in it, and you're not reinventing the wheel. So if you've got a workshop material, you want to think about doing even 100-page book like this. It's super easy and it's not taxing. Oh yes, interviews. So a lot of folks are doing podcast interviews. And, if you've ever read Oprah magazine, in every issue of Oprah, there's an interview with some famous celebrity. And so to put together a collection of interviews is a great way to, have a book out in this world. And I'm going to put a couple of caveats out there. If you think that you can take a recorded interview like what you and I are having right now, and then have it transcribed and be able to just simply drop that on the page, you are going to be horribly disappointed in what it actually looks like. Because what happens when people are having a conversation is that we don't finish our sentences, or we're going off on a tangent, or suddenly I'm bringing up Walt. And, the transcript becomes pretty.
Or someone's laughing and it doesn't quite translate well on the page.
Right. Or you're like, we're talking about Moo the dog, and you're like, what? What is with the Moo, and so you've got to really clean up the transcript. You've got to edit it. Not only do you have to edit it, you have to, put a preface about what you got out of the, the interview, what the main points are. You've got to, digest a little bit before and after a given, interview transcription. Right. But, regardless, you put together, you've got all that content right there. And if you do a little cleanup in aisle 9 after you transcribe, and transcriptions, there's so many services for really inexpensive transcriptions. And you'll notice if you get it done in the Philippines or in a non-native English-speaking country, there are some surprising interpretations of what your words, actually were. So you gotta be aware of it. Yes. But an interview book totally does the trick, and it also lends, it lends a certain, heft to your podcast or your interview series. Suddenly you've got, as seen on or as heard on your podcast.
Wow.
Another kind of book.
You're making writing a book sound so simple.
It's so simple. It's so simple.
As the opening was, I believe, was that while you were out at a book writing conference, learning about how to write a book, techniques of writing a book, Walt, the husband, El Presidente, was at home. He just wrote the book.
Yes. So I'm gonna. There are a lot of easy genres out there, and before I touch on the fifth one, and there's a whole bunch. Obviously, there are a whole bunch more. A lot of us who come into service, personal service industry, into different avenues of that, we're helpers. Those of us who are speakers, those of us who are coaches, we often come into it because we've been our own first clients. We have learned how to do something, usually the hard way.
Yes.
And when you learn how to do something the hard way, you've got a lot of stories. And a big part of our intention in doing the work we do is we want to make people's lives easier. We want to save people time and grief.
Yes.
And in order to do that, a lot of times we feel compelled to share our personal stories. And to sit down and use a personal story to create a scene, to really share, allow people to feel what you experience, to place them there with you, to really allow them to get that you understand their problem, that you've experienced it yourself. You're not going to do that with a quote book. You are, you're not going to do it. You're not going to be able to accomplish that with some of these easier genres. And so there is it can get a lot more complicated. It takes more work to be able to share real fleshed out stories. It's not a transcription. It's not quotes. And that's the stuff that requires some skill. That's the stuff that requires some guidance. It's learning about the balance of these stories, how to do it effectively, so you're not whining or you're not, grandstanding. You're allowing people in. You're affecting them. You're inspiring them. You're motivating them, and that takes some skill.
And you're doing it in a way that has the desired outcome. Is to make that impact, is to get them to want to read it, so you can make that impact, without dumping on them.
Yeah. So when I'm choosing stories to write as a writing coach, I have a lot more leeway than other businesses, because any story that I'm sharing, at the same time, I'm demonstrating what it is to write a story. So, I can write the stories about my, 5-inch cockroaches coming up out of my toilet when I lived in Iran, or, my then husband who took a second wife. And, I can tell those stories and I can make them relevant to my business. But if you are, if you are somebody who you help people with some aspect of accounting, writing about your run-in with, the law when you're 16, unless you can draw a direct parallel to something about your business, the story doesn't even make sense. And it's, misplaced. Right. So, there has to be an eye to what transformation you give people. Yes. Whether or not the stories that you're presenting at that moment actually support that journey that you take people on, whether or not that those aspects of your journey support that, so it's learning to decipher what is a relevant story and what's not. And, that takes some skill.
Absolutely.
So it's easy to talk about Walt and his book, and his book did the job that was necessary for him, but it might not do the job based on what you want. So, just that caveat.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, both our live audience here as well as both our live audience here watching the replay, So this whole idea of the five different ways to write can be found on your website.
Yes.
To get beyond and learn how they can you potentially tell us how they can find you.
So you can find me at AnnSheybani.com. And I probably should spell that because Sheybani seems to be
Yes, you should.
So Ann is ANN because you can mess that one up. And Sheybani is SHEYB like boy ANI. So AnnSheybani.com. And you can learn everything that you want about me. And also, thanks to you in part, Paul, on LinkedIn, because I learned how to write a proper LinkedIn profile because of you.
Yes, you did. Because before
Word.
I looked at your LinkedIn profile.
It was a mess. It was a mess. I followed word for word what you said to do, and there's a few things that I need to do. But before I followed what you had said about writing a LinkedIn profile, it was like disastrous. Right. So you can go to my LinkedIn profile too, and thanks to Paul, you can tell what my tone and my services are.
Fantastic. Well, and thank you so much for your time today. I am inspired. Think about taking action on writing a book. I see that there's so many different ways to do it. And the why it really makes it powerful. I don't need to overthink it. Create that credibility as an author. Take a lot of the content that I've already done, put it out in a form that would be compelling. So that to me was an aha moment.
Good. I'm glad. And just think, repurpose.
100% agree. Okay. All right. Thanks so much for your time today.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye, Paul.
Okay. Bye.